Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, the 26th. A little bit of a sleepy day, I would say, on our hands, and I'll get into that in just a second. First disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. So on a sleepy day, I'll talk faster to get you through this recap as I do these every day. So we'll still do today's. Well, we had some nice, it was kind of two different days a little bit. This morning, you had some nice continuation, nice outperformance for IWM, and that just kind of fizzled over the day. And you could see that IWM, while finishing positive and outperforming the other indices, except for the Dow there, it looks like, and also the microcaps actually did a little bit better too. But they still outperformed the large caps and specifically the Qs. That was interesting me, of course, because I put on a trade on Friday where I went long IWM and short the Qs, and I got 2 days of relative outperformance for that. I did decide to take that trade off today just because we have this little company called Nvidia that reports on Wednesday, and that's gonna be very interesting. And these, when you have either a big earnings report like we have for Nvidia, or a CPI, economic report, or a Fed speech. These are unknown events. You don't know what's going to happen with these. Now you could try to have a little bit of edge with that and say, okay, well, let's look at what happened with the past times that Nvidia reported earnings, and you could bring up the history here, and you can see it's 7 out of the last 10 times Nvidia has had a positive price reaction. By the way, that's all that we really care. Like, I'm going to offend people with this, but that's all that we really care about, right? If you're a stock trader or even an investor, of course, it's nice to hear that they beat earnings or that they said something good on their conference call. But at the end of the day, you care about what the price reaction is. And the last, and I'm just using 10 because obviously the more nearby information that we get is more carries more weight. So that's why I don't go down, I don't go looking at the last 20 earnings reports, but the last 10 and the last 5 reports have been there's been 4 out of the last 5 where price has gone up, and it's 7 out of the last 10. But yes, it is important. I'm kind of joking around a little bit. You do want to see, obviously, and you do want to see something positive, from them in terms of, guidance and what they say in terms of future streams of revenue. I think who is the analyst? I can't think of his name right now. Gene Munster, I think, was talking about that today. Was talking about how it's really going to be important what they say on the earnings call. I think that's spot on. I think that's generally the case. But I want to remind newer investors, don't get upset for what and this isn't just Nvidia, but this is any company. It's not whether the company beat earnings for the last quarter, right? That's not going to make the stock go up. So younger investors always get that confused. They're like, well, I don't understand how the stock could be down. They beat on earnings. That's in the past. You have to remember that you have to be forward looking. So it's more so about the guidance and about what they say on the conference call about their future growth and what they're going to be coming out with next. Those are the things that are going to drive. And we've seen also, the last big company I think that reported semis or AI related was SMCI. And remember, they had good numbers, but they talked about margin pressure, and the stock sold off hard on that. So there's a lot of implications. So at the end of the day, it's going to be price, and people are going to be nitpicky going through the numbers and what they have to say, because they make a lot of money and there's a lot of expectations. I was reading a report this weekend about how investors are under owned in Nvidia and some of the other bigger tech names. I don't believe that. I think that it's the opposite. So again, I throw out my own arguments here. It's my end of day video, so I can do that. But I mean, just look at all the ETFs that SPYs, Qs, right? All the popular ETFs. the market cap weighted ETFs. These names are the highest weights. So to tell people that they're under owned, I hope you're factoring in all the mutual funds and all the ETFs that have Nvidia like in the top five. So that's a really bad argument. And by the way, that's always the case. Someone will say, oh, they'll take a slice of the market and they'll say, oh, the hedge funds are under owned Nvidia, or but what about the whole market, right? Not just hedge funds. Or now of course you could use hedge funds for an indicator, because a lot of time hedge funds are on the wrong side of the right side of the, whatever you want to call it, I guess, but the right side of the market. But in any event, I don't believe that people are under owned Nvidia. I think if you don't believe me, the largest ETFs that are out there, look at where Nvidia ranks up. Right, it's here you go. Right, it's the second largest, right? 6.7% of the largest ETF that's out. Or if it's SPY's not the largest ETF at this point, it's one of the largest. How about the Qs? Are the Qs underweight Nvidia? No, it's the second highest weight. It's just right behind Apple. So anyway, I'll move on, but I'm just trying to give you a little bit of perspective in terms of this. 1 second. So why do I bring this up? Because I think this is going to be a driver, and there's a lot of other interesting earnings reports out too. Earning Whispers does a great job at putting out, you know, who is reporting on a day-to-day basis, and does some really good commentary, among others who put out earnings information. But yeah, I mean, this Nvidia is kind of right at a pivot point. So many charts, by the way, right at the top of like their value area, right? And I try to, I illustrate why I use volume at price so much and why I use the value areas. But were you going to get a sense before? I've played Nvidia for a run up into earnings a couple weeks back, and I took profits on this particular day. Why did I do that? Because I knew that we were hitting resistance, and the stock hasn't gone anywhere in a week. So it's been better. Remember, part of this game is allocating your time efficiently. And I just knew that Nvidia, I had an alert on it to see if it was going to take the next leg higher, because who's to say it can't run more into earnings? But right there and at the top of the value area. And a lot of charts are doing this. Like, so if you look at the S&P futures, right, we're consolidating. Where are we consolidating? Right at the top of the value area for the month. Right? Not at the previous highs, but right there. I mean, ding, 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 ding. And it's the same thing last week with IWM, right? And so volume at price, giving us a really good hint. Last week I made reference to this a whole bunch of times, right? That we were hitting the bottom of the value area for the month, right? And we kind of got held up there for 4 days, and then price managed to break through. So again, they're points of interest, right? And you want to be aware of points of interest. That's the whole thing with technicals, knowing where there's resistance, where there's overhead supply that comes in the area of VPOCs, and that's basically why I reduced some risk today. I had a number of trades that worked pretty decently today, and I just decided to take some of them off because they hit some targets. But before I go into any of that, just to kind of round up, very interesting to see some of the best performers. ITB. Which home builders, which were really strong, and I think everybody realizing that on Friday, but they were down 1.1%, and they sold off the most out of any group over the session today. So again, always important to kind of leave some dry powder. I went long some Toll Brothers on Friday and took a couple targets in that name, and now I've got some dry powder if I want to add to that name. But your worst sector was the semis today. I've been talking about that for weeks, how volatile that group has gotten. Another thing that I talked about in the weekend video for members was just that, when you're looking at things like RSP, which is that, meaning that gives a good representation of the overall market, a little extended here, made a new high today, intraday high, because it closed right around where we closed on Friday, which is kind of, again, also I find interesting. But we've had things like the consumer staples are so unfortunately, people are going to get a little bit upset at me, but this is what I try to convey in the weekend video, that whether you like it or not, the consumer staples continue to break out, the financials continue to break out, even though it looks like a tough looking candle for the day. So again, I would watch the 5 period moving average, maybe the top of the value area, but utilities, right? And there's like 5 or 6 of these things, right? Industrials have been doing well, right? They're at new highs, right? XLB had a good day today, but back, that's a little bit tough on the back of tariffs. But this made out this closed right around an all-time high for XLB. I'm missing the aerospace and defense ETF made a new high on Friday, not a new high today, but not new closing high. So these are the things that have been like so by definition, these things breaking out to new highs are showing you relative strength and showing you what the market likes right now. And there's a couple others. I'm not going to spend all the time here, but the one area that has not is tech. Tech has kind of been stuck in the mud. It had a reversal on Thursday and it had an inside day on Friday and is back below. It's having difficulties with its 50-day moving average. So, the whole thing when I go through these charts is just to let you know, like, to maybe not necessarily force trades that are not there and illustrate, again, I'm using that word, just where there is not strength right now in this market. So again, very strong earnings report by Nvidia could turn this around, but just saw a lot of AI related names go down a lot today. SMCI, I mean, look at this name. This name has been horrible. Sorry to the longs, but I think the writing was on the tape when this name was not making any more higher. It was making a pattern of lower highs. That's usually not a good pattern. And then of course it broke, and then it really broke on the earnings. ARM is another one. Like ARM is going to move on Nvidia earnings, but it did not have a good day today. And this name made a nice move from the lows. Saw a whole bunch of call buying in here, which worked. But you have to ask yourself, like, whether or not you want to be aggressive here. And look at Microsoft. Microsoft saw a big call buyer a couple days ago, and that was kind of the high of the stock. Since then, it's been, this doesn't look great either. So again, these things could turn around, and again, I'm talking more of like the short to medium term, because that's, basically where I trade one of my portfolios. Apple's doing okay, but so that's the story I think right now is um, some of the bigger areas of this market, like tech, which tech is about 30% of the S&P, is having some difficulties, I think, here. And again, everything was up on Friday, but there was no real technical you know ground that was taken back, especially in the semis group. Just a couple stocks, for me, like some stocks that I talked about on Friday. I probably talked about Wing and an inverted head and shoulders. I took the money and ran today. I achieved this target, and I also think, so again, I'm just inserting a little bit of caution here. Because as we get towards the end of the month, I always view the end of if you're a regular viewer of my video, I've been saying this as we get to the end of the months, I find the end of the months sometimes, not every month, but the majority of the months, I find more difficult. So I would just keep that in mind, right? Bitcoin, by the way, which I really liked how Bitcoin was acting towards the end of last week. Let's see if it continues here. It didn't really have any follow through for the day. And again, all I'm looking for, by the way, I heard a bunch of people on Twitter talk about how great the Bitcoin chart is. I'm not one of them. Did I go long Bitcoin for a trade? I did, right? And I'm using the bullish 80% rule, but I'll probably sell it if we get anywhere near the top of the value area. And that's a decent move up. That's about a 9% move up. But I don't think that this, maybe it eventually comes out of this. But it's kind of like I just went over an SMCI. For now, here's your high, here's your lower high. Made this, I guess I wouldn't call this a lower high here, but here's another lower high. So the question is, and I'm not making a prediction here. I'm not getting anybody excited because that's kind of dumb, in my opinion. You should be looking at things objectively, not getting all excited because somebody's pumping up Bitcoin charts over the weekend. But let's see if we can get out of this pattern of making lower highs. I would be all about that, right? And here's what this looks like. This could be a giant bull flag, but I've got to see it at least. Like, I'll be taking profits in here, and then I'll be watching to see if it can break higher. But I would, I think that would be great. to see that. And I think a name that I went over, I got long this name today, Core Z. So again, it's like Paul Tudor Jones. I mentioned him earlier. Paul Tudor Jones, one of the most famous traders and investors. He whatever he's holding, he always assumes all of his positions are incorrect, right? Why? Because he's always worried about the risk and about his money on the table. Right. And I think that's so much more important than getting all hyped up about, charts that look good. Hey, if this works, so be it. If it doesn't, I know exactly what to do. And, you have to keep your emotions in check in this game. If you get emotionally involved in this stuff, it's going to be harder to change your mind. And it's one of the best things and it's how I've learned to be a trader is you got to be able to change your mind as the facts change and as the price, which for me is the price. As the price changes, I got to be able to change my mind and not stay hooked on to, hopes and dreams. So that's why I really, in these videos and what I do in my trading room, I really try to stay, very, very unemotional. Here's the names that are above, and then this is a short-term momentum scan of sectors. This is not a long-term scan, but you could see which ones are showing the strength right now versus which ones are not. Now, what's nice is I don't have any of them flashing weak, but there's certainly ones that are not really showing the momentum. That's another name. I also got out of the majority of my upstart position, just close enough. I've been long, I got long in here. I think a firm will be an interesting report this week. Right, that poked its head out of the value area. Let's see if it can begin to kind of change course with that pattern of lower highs. So that'll be another interesting report. I also got out of 3M today, close enough, even though like it feels like 3M wants to go higher. But my whole price target was this VPOC up here, so I took it off. Even though you got more VPOCs up here, but I will like if we get some consolidation in here, then I will be looking for that. So I'll leave it there, guys. That's it for tonight's video. And again, just doing what I'm doing, in front of me. I do hope tomorrow that we get a more of a turnaround Tuesday. Sometimes Mondays and especially a summer Monday aren't that great in terms of momentum. So we'll see if we do get that turnaround Tuesday, especially for some of the tech stocks tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.